This anime was released in October 2013 and is still ahead of its time. With the animation alone, you wouldn't believe this came out more than a decade ago. Just look at this. Flashy and vibrant fight scenes early on in the series, so you know it's only going to get even crazier. There are even idol dance sequences if you want to enjoy that aspect. Comedy is also amusing. I mean, this is not comedy, this is realistic. This is how girls hug, and this is how guys hug.
Akihito. Hentai.
It's not all fun and games though. This anime isn't afraid to hit you with emotional gut punches that might just make you tear up. Even a decade later, its themes and storytelling feel as fresh and impactful as ever. Beyond the Boundary begins with a monologue from the main character Akihito, who sets up the show's main theme defining what it means to take one's own life. He sees a girl on the school rooftop, seemingly about to jump off, so he desperately rushes to her. He says anything and everything he can to try to convince her not to jump. Then, all of a sudden, she stabs him in his chest. However, this is simply the beginning of their unusual relationship. As it turns out, Akihito is immortal. He is a half-human, half-yomu. Yomus are essentially demon-like creatures said to be the manifestation of negative human emotions. This shocking twist sets the tone for their unusual relationship and introduces the show's exploration of mortality. Not only is this a great hook to the story, but this scene establishes one of the anime's core themes, the fragility of life and the ways people confront their inner demons. Mirai, the girl who Akihito tried to save, is the sole survivor of a particular clan of Spirit World Warriors. Spirit World Warriors are those who have the ability to traverse into the spirit world and hunt down yomus. However, Mirai is from a specific cursed clan of Spirit World Warriors that has the power to employ their blood as weapons. It's speculated that because this particular clan was so powerful, they had a tendency to want to eliminate anyone who was stronger than them. The problem arises when we find out that Mirai has never actually defeated a Yomu before, and is absolutely terrified of them despite her powerful lineage. She was simply using Akihito as a practice dummy to build her confidence and experience in taking down Yomus. As the story progresses, Akihito and Mirai seem to be growing closer, but things don't go as smoothly as he might have hoped. Akihito, eager to strengthen their bond, tries inviting Mirai to join the literature club. However, Mirai outright rejects his invitation. He continues to persuade her, but no matter how persistent he is, she remains stubborn in her refusal. Not long after, we learn about the looming threat of an approaching powerful Yomu called the Hollow Shadow. Mirai, driven by her personal mission, sets out on her own to hunt it down. Eventually, Akihito catches up to Mirai and together they enter the spirit world to face the Hollow Shadow in a high-stakes battle. Through these events, we begin to understand why Mirai keeps everyone at arm's length. In her childhood, her uncontrollable powers caused the death of her closest friend, an event that has haunted her ever since. She's terrified of forming relationships or building friendships only to lose them again. Through her backstory, we start to sympathize and understand more about Mirai's character. Just as it seems like the Hollow Shadow is nearly defeated, it suddenly takes a drastic turn. It attempts to possess Akihito, trying to use his body as its new host. Mirai hesitates, unsure whether she should attack Akihito, even though he's immortal. Sensing her hesitation, Akihito reassures her, urging her to finish off the Hollow Shadow through him. It's at this critical moment that Akihito's group arrives, but something is clearly wrong. Not only is Akihito half human and half Yomu, but he so happens to harbor one of the most powerful Yomu in existence. His inner Yomu begins to surface, and his transformation makes him look less and less human. His immense power spirals out of control, leaving chaos and destruction everywhere. Mirai watches in complete shock as Akihito loses himself to his power. For the first time, she sees her own lonely and haunted self reflected in him. Mirai, seeing the turmoil Akihito is trapped in, decides to take a chance. She then approaches him and wraps him in a warm embrace. It's a simple yet powerful gesture that cuts through the chaos, reaching the part of Akihito that's still human. In that moment, her kindness and understanding brings his consciousness back to the surface, reminding him that he's not alone in his struggle. Just like Akihito and Mirai, many of us carry burdens that we believe no one else can understand. Akihito hides behind his immortality and carefree demeanor, while Mirai isolates herself, haunted by her past. Both are trapped in their own struggles, though Mirai slowly begins to heal by allowing someone else into her world and Akihito starts to feel a sense of belonging as there's finally someone relatable to the struggle he's been enduring. It's a reminder that even when we feel alone, connection and understanding can be powerful tools for overcoming pain. As we can see early on in the series, their bond doesn't form instantly. It's tested, broken, and rebuilt as they both confront their fears. Their emotional growth feels almost rushed but still manages to be natural, giving us just enough time to understand the strength of their connection. It is with their character dynamic that we see how both of them remind us of something simple but powerful. Healing is rarely something we do alone. In our own lives, it's easy to think that our struggles are unique and that no one else could possibly relate to. But like Akihito and Mirai, sometimes finding someone willing to listen reminds us that we're not as alone as we think. Despite how pleasant things may seem, I promised at the beginning that this series isn't afraid to pull any punches. Without spoiling too much about what happens towards the end, the series gives a convoluted conclusion with Akihito and Mirai meeting for the final time before the credits roll. It's a moment filled with emotion, leaving us with more to reflect on than simple answers. There's a lot more to unpack with the story of Beyond the Boundary, but at its core, it's a tale about sacrifice, connection, and the resilience of the human spirit. It reminds us that even faced with impossible choices, the bonds we share can give us the strength to move forward. In our own lives, we may not face life and death battles like Akihito and Mirai, but we all encounter struggles of all kinds, whether it be health, wealth, love, or happiness. This story encourages us to find the strength in the people who stand beside us by leaning into those connections. While the theme of self-sacrifice or battling inner demons isn't exactly groundbreaking, Beyond the Boundary elevated these already familiar concepts. When this anime was released in 2013, it captivated audiences with its breathtaking visuals that were ahead of its time, a fun storyline, and a really emotional ending. A decade later, many of the tropes explored in this series are still common in anime today, but Beyond the Boundary stands out because it doesn't just rely on these elements, it uses them to tell a story that feels timeless and deeply personal. So whether you're drawn in by the stunning animation, the dynamic characters, or the emotional depth, Beyond the Boundary continues to leave an impact that resonates with us to this day. In the end, this story reminds us of the power of connection and the strength of resilience.